What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another takeaways video, another studs and duds video with a little bit of a rookie report, a new addition that I'm throwing in to this episode. Taking a look at the Lions' last game, their last preseason game yesterday against the Indianapolis Colts, week number 2, and the Lions' first win of the season. And yes, I'm taking this dub. We know it doesn't count because it's preseason, but the season is short. You only got 17 regular season games, and I guess it's been a long time since the Lions have actually won in the preseason. I didn't know that. You guys were throwing like different numbers at me, like 2018, 2019. I don't know. Regardless, it just feels good to get a win. Lions beat the Colts 27-26 on the road yesterday in preseason action. The starters, for the most part, did not play. A little bit defensively, but with that being said, let's get it started.
Fired up. It's made a great decision.
Great teammates, coaches, and other people who want to be Super Bowl champions. And we are. We're going to do it this year.
And we're going places because we want to go places.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we are back with another takeaways video. The last one definitely got a little bit longer than I anticipated that video would get. It's also like a little bit of a portion that I want to specifically like kind of take a look at in that game in terms of containment. But with that being said, offensively, we really didn't get any starters in this game. So it was mainly the role players and the depth pieces there. And defensively, we got some guys that could end up being starters. For example, Jeff Okudah did play a little bit in this game. And we also got some change-ups in this game as well, which I felt very good about because it's something that Dan Campbell did not do at all last season in terms of just adjusting the depth chart, maybe based on how guys were playing, to see guys in different roles. And we can kind of speculate what certain things might mean. They may have their own meaning for it. You know, just because a guy plays above someone else may not necessarily mean that they feel like he played better the week before than that player. It could, you know, be a whole different reason. But I did like how he changed up and adjusted the depth chart a little bit today to reflect a lot of things that I think we all saw. I loved how he did that. So we're first going to just talk a little bit about this game, a couple of my main takeaways as a team, and then we'll go into some of the specific studs and duds and also some of the rookie report, kind of just a new little addition that I threw into this one. The Detroit Lions going into half and coming out of the half, and how well they executed that. Going into half, the Detroit Lions were down 6-13, and they went in and scored. David Blau's touchdown pass there to Tom Kennedy. He hit that like slot corner pass to Tom Kennedy in the end zone with time expiring. It was a little interesting with the play calling decision there. The Lions didn't have a timeout. They decided to run the ball with about 20 seconds left. They did a handoff, picked up about a yard. So they had to hurry, get back to the line of scrimmage. They threw a pass to Shane Zylstra. David Blau put it behind him. Didn't really give him a great chance to come up with it. Now there's 3 seconds, so they have an opportunity to either take the field goal, make it a 4-point game on a chip shot, or go for it. And they ended up deciding to go for it. And they threw a touchdown to Tom Kennedy. Then you come out of half, and of course at this point you got different guys on the field. And offensively, it's no longer David Blau. Now it's Tim Boyle leading the way. That was one of the changes that they made, is they decided to switch up the quarterback rotation, which I loved. First off, I think it's also a feel thing. You know, when you're the first quarterback out there, it's a little bit different. David Blau has never in this regime been above Tim Boyle in any situation. So I love that they did that. And I think David Blau handled it well to have his first drive go down the field. We didn't score, but we got a good drive and we kicked the field goal. But it was a really well set up by a run game. We really played through a run game in this game. And I think you could argue that Tim Boyle had the better day today, but I did love how they mixed it up. However, then coming out of the half to force a 3-and-out defensively and then go down to score a touchdown and take the lead, like that was a great swing by the Lions. They executed really well in those 2 little situations. I also have to bring up the discipline side because the Lions look like a pretty darn disciplined team right now. And now, of course, we all hear like, hey, Dallas had 17 penalties in their first preseason game. That's not good. That's not good. And they all, you know, not every penalty is created equally. But when you look at what I'm talking about here specifically, you take a look at the penalty side. The Lions only had 3 penalties in this game for 25 yards. I believe they also had another one against them that ended up being declined, but only 3 penalties accepted against the Lions in this game, including, I don't believe they had any false start penalties, which I think is huge considering that you rolled with your backups, your reserves in this game. I thought that was huge. We had 2 plays where we got the defense to jump off sides, and we took advantage of both of those plays. The first one, of course, we just moved forward 5 yards on the 3rd and 11, and then the second one we threw a touchdown to Tom Kennedy, both led by Tim Boyle. He's great with the hard count, but no false starts. If I remember correctly, I don't think there was any false starts after rewatching it. I think that's outstanding. The Lions are limiting penalties. They're not necessarily beating themselves in that sense. We'd have a big kick return. There was no flags. and I will give a shout out later to that, but Craig Reynolds, I'm going to say it right now as well. Craig Reynolds, as an up back on that block, to avoid the holding call and just kind of put his hands up and position himself to allow that big kick return to not be negated. We've seen that a ton, where usually big returns on special teams are always pulled back. Did not happen in this game. So I'll give a shout out there. Speaking of special teams, because we're on the topic of it, the Lions special teams unit looked really good in terms of what we can control. How well do we block? Pick up our assignments, avoid those flags as we just talked about in those situations to springboard these big kick returns. Because I think a lot of times, and I do it all the time too, you kind of just forget about the guys that are actually blocking and who's setting up these big kick returns. And you're like, well, look at the kick returner. He's outstanding. And as well as Maurice Alexander did, he did really well in this game. Also, just look at how the guys are setting this up. Whether Craig Reynolds and Jamar Jefferson, that kind of duo of upbacks, I absolutely love the way those guys led the way for Maurice Alexander in this game. I mean, Jamar just dropped the guy to his knee on one block. Craig Reynolds was consistent. Every time they went down, if they would miss a block, they would get back and search. They were avoiding penalties. I mean, they just springboarded everything. And then shout out to Maurice for finishing it. But in that way, the Lions look like a pretty darn disciplined team. Now, there still are a few missed tackles that do show up, but I don't think it's something that's extremely like, oh, that's worrisome at this point. Some guys miss some tackles. Like, for example, Juju Hughes missed a tackle where he was just completely outsized. Kirby Joseph took a bad run angle. So we do have missed tackles here and there. Like, there was one in the flat where we kind of overrun it, and Josh Woods got back into it, and he ended up knocking the guy out of bounds. But we're not, it's not looking like disastrous in that area. Looking on rushing the football, the Lions run game. And you can really control a game through the run game. If you can run the ball well, you can control a game, you can control the clock. We did that against Arizona last year. We didn't have to throw the ball very much, but we ran so well. We controlled the game from the opening kickoff. We took the ball for about, 8.5 minutes, and we only got a field goal, but we controlled the game from there on out. But then defensively, if you can stop the run, oh man, you are in firm control of the football game. And this game should not have been as close as it was because the Lions did those two things. We're going to talk about it. There's some areas that definitely should be cleaned up. My camera just died, so we're going to switch over. We haven't used this in a minute, but we're going to switch over because I don't want it to look whack. So we're just going to do it this way, all right? So if the audio sounds different, I apologize. We're just going to make it happen. With that being said, all right, the run game. It's a little bit more vanilla, of course, in the preseason. By the way, I will give credit to Ben Johnson because I like what he did schematically. I thought the Lions did a lot of power run game, which I think definitely helped out guys like Logan Stenberg. It was kind of built for that, kind of the mauler type offensive lineman. And I think it really helped springboard this run game. Of course, they start off with the screen to Craig Reynolds, picked up about 5 yards, but I loved how they utilized the power run game regardless. With that being said, the Lions in this game had 174 rushing yards on 5.3 yards per carry. Every running back had some level of success in this game. And on the flip side, the Colts didn't even pick up a first down rushing the football in this game. They had 1.7 yards per carry for 30 yards in this game rushing. The Lions were outstanding on both sides of the ball in terms of really just setting the tone, rushing the football, and stopping the run. And it led to a lot of third and long situations for the Colts. Now the Lions, specifically with more of their reserves in this game, have to be better at getting off the field. And I think some of that will come with disguising coverage more so in the regular season than we do now, because there are a couple times this game where we just simply got beat on, like, they took advantage of the coverage we were in. With the not the first team defense, but the beginning with Will Harris, they took advantage of the man coverage, right? They put Will in a really tough position where he couldn't get over and make a play before they picked up the first down on the drag there. So things like that will happen. Like I said, Kirby Joseph took a really steep angle, and he could have had a tackle and made the play short on third down, but he took a steep angle on Alec Pierce, didn't get the stop. So there were situations like that. But for the Lions, offensively, they were 10 for 17 on third down, and a lot of that stemmed from a lot of third and short situations. They weren't backing themselves up. And then when they did in the second half, guys like Tim Boyle, for example, got them to jump off sides. They picked it up. They did well on third down in this game, 10 for 17. They just allowed too many third down conversions where they should have gotten off the field more often than they didn't. I just feel like Campbell has learned a lot from his first preseason experience in terms of updating the depth charts, moving things around, seeing guys in different positions versus kind of what they did last season where they really didn't do that. For example, Mike Hughes started at the slot position in this game over A.J. Parker, and there wasn't really a lot of noteworthy plays when watching Mike Hughes back, especially without the All-22. I did like this zone pass-off that he had here underneath coverage. He's just lurking behind the route. But A.J. Parker was one of those guys that didn't play a lot the first game, but there were a couple of run contain issues. We're like, man, why is he doing that? And at the same time, this guy has some areas where he can improve on his game. And they signed Mike Hughes. They've been pretty much exclusively using him in the slot spot. So they ended up starting him in this game, and I think he held it down well. I'm curious to see what they do in the third preseason game, if they play these guys at all. But I liked how they mixed it up, and I could see Mike Hughes starting at slot. I could definitely see that being the case. We talked about the quarterback position, how they flipped that. You know, just in different ways, they adjusted the lineups for this game, which I did like. To give a little credit to the Lions defense as a whole, because there were some tough positions that we put them in, whether it was the interception from David Blau, the ball that got tipped up in the air and picked off, or just some bad spots that we put them in, and they definitely showed up. And again, especially in that second half, we had multiple 3-and-outs that we were able to force. But there were just a couple too many times in that game where we gave up 3rd and longs that we should have gotten off the field. And then also, you take a look at some of the touchdowns that we gave up. For example, the one to Mark Gilbert, clearly they missed a push off there by the receiver that they scored a touchdown on. I don't think this game should have been that close, but then shout out to the defense, who played pretty well. Made a big stop at the end of the game when they went for 2 and got the stop and ended up getting the win. Kind of a little bit different than what it was last week. And then, of course, they got the onside back. Shout out to Tom Kennedy. So with that said, let's dive into some of the individuals that I have for studs, duds, and we'll go the up-down category as well. Just some good, some bad. But at the same time, I'm going to do a rookie, kind of stock report. Guys that I think moved up, guys I think moved down, and guys that really didn't move at all. So let's dive into this. Let's start with the studs. Of course, we have a good amount of studs. And, of course, we take into account kind of the expectation of the player. What is my expectation for the player? And at the same time, we also take into account how many reps, right? If it's not a good amount of reps or there wasn't enough to really go off, I may not put him in any category. Sometimes I will, but I usually won't. Like, for example, Jeff Okudah. I wouldn't know where to put Jeff Okudah in this at all. Mike Hughes. I wouldn't know where to put Mike Hughes in this. Yeah, he was good, but there was nothing that really stood out to put him in any sort of category. So that's what I'm doing. I don't have every single player on here. I try to focus on the big names or the ones that really stood out to me, whether that was a stud or a dud, and not go through every single player, or maybe guys that we put on here last week, specifically on the offensive line, and then try to find maybe a category just to see where they went to this week, or guys that just had enough snaps that I felt like it was necessary putting them at some part of this list. All right, so not everybody is on here. So on to the studs, the first player that I have, and these are in no particular order, but again, Demetrius Taylor probably has a case to say that he was, one of the best players in this game for the Lions. I mean, just the continuous penetration that he had along the defensive line, the first step, filling his gap. There were about 3 to 4 plays that I counted in this game where not only, of course, was he getting into the backfield, but there was an impact that he had on the play. Whether or not he was making the tackle or forcing a different cut lane by the running back, Demetrius Taylor's presence in the run game was felt at different times throughout this game. But I love the energy that he plays with. He also had a tackle for loss. He was involved in a tackle for loss. Demetrius Taylor, man, he was great in this game. And this was good because last week he had some flash plays as well when he got in there and he mixed in a little bit at nose. He's not the biggest nose tackle, so you anticipate that where he's going to win is with the first step explosiveness. It fits what this defense needs schematically, and right now he is showing up in that area, specifically in this last game. And look, we talked about it. The defensive line should win this battle in this game. I thought on paper we were the better defensive line. They had a lot of young offensive linemen, a lot of inexperienced guys in terms of their reserve. So the Lions should have won this battle. And they didn't disappoint. The defensive line dominated it. All of a sudden, the linebackers looked pretty good. The Lions' run defense was outstanding. They dominated, I thought, for the most part, specifically in the run game. Now, pass rush, there were lapses at times, especially when we got later into the game where we weren't getting any sort of push. But in the run game, we were good. And Demetrius Taylor was a very good player in this game. He is definitely making a case to making this roster for the Lions. And I would have no issues with it from what I've seen through 2 games. Let's see if we can continue to put that up in game 3. That will be huge. Josh Woods, I gave him love last week. I'm going to give him love again. I know where he's playing on the depth chart is not a spot where it's like, hey, he's probably going to make the team. But I have to show the guy love because first off, we talk about energy. This guy is a ball of energy. Every time you see him, he is just fired up. His pursuit is outstanding. He is always chasing the ball carrier. Special teams, he always finds a way to get involved in at least one special teams play a game, which is beneficial. Lions love that. He's a heck of a special teams player. We saw that last year. It's a big reason that he got re-signed. But then defensively, right now, what I'm seeing a smart player that's just doing his job. He may not be getting all these flash plays, but he's doing his job at a pretty high level. One occasion where I was like, okay, maybe, he got sucked in a little bit on this play and coverage out of the backfield into the flats, playing the run, filling his lane. I mean, he is on top of things too. He's getting the things quick. He's not late to making these plays or filling his responsibility. Josh Woods is another guy that, again, I was impressed with once again this week. And if he was linebacker 5 for the Lions, worthy linebacker 5, off-ball linebacker 5 for the Lions because of what I've seen from him to this point. Now, again, we put Anthony Pittman on here last week. I didn't think he had enough flashes, so I didn't really know where to put him, so I didn't include him. But Anthony Pittman did begin the game with a nice screen stop, so I have to give him some love. Tom Kennedy. All right, Tom Kennedy didn't put up the gaudy yards that he put up in his first preseason game, but Tom Kennedy, again, was good, and he gives you the sense of, when it's a situation of where do I look to win the one-on-one, they look to Tom Kennedy. And there are occasions where he can't win one-on-one. That just is what it is. His skill set is that. Sometimes he's not going to get that separation. But he is everything that reliable is at this point. He is 100% reliable for the Lions. I think that's actually the word Dan Campbell used. Of course, he got the onside back, which was great. I mean, he recovered it for us. So it's like, okay, we keep possession. He's the hands guy, made a great catch. But then, even though he didn't have a huge stat line, every time you throw it to him, he comes up with the football at this point. He's not super dynamic with the ball in his hands, but he comes up with it. He had the 2 touchdowns, one from Tim Boyle when they got him off sides and he threw the touchdown. And then the other one was the corner route that David Blau had before the half. He also had some underneath grabs as well that weren't, the most difficult, like a drag. He had 2 underneath passes that weren't super difficult. They also had a great play design at the beginning. They hit him versus off coverage, I believe, of the safety, and he was wide open. So I was like, all right, that was pretty easy. But he's reliable. That's what he is. And even Dan Campbell said, we're trying to find a place for him on special teams to give him the best chance to make this team because he's showing up in the pass game. It's undeniable. But he will have to find some sort of impact on special teams, I believe. Our wide receiver group is deeper this year. All right, there is no Brashad Perriman that's not going to make the team, so it's opening up a spot. He's going to have to bring some level, I believe, of something to special teams. He's just going to have to make this team. And they're trying him out at gunner, Dan Campbell said, so we'll see how he feels about how that went. But speaking of that, let's just jump over Boyle for a second, go right to Maurice Alexander, because this is a guy that played a really good game as well. Of course, we talk about what he did as a kick returner, and I just discussed how we blocked really well for it because we did, but Maurice Alexander did really well as a kick returner. He was breaking tackles. Punt returner, not as much, didn't have the same big returns there, but kick returning, allowing to be patient. He was a very patient returner. He was an outstanding returner in the USFL. He was outstanding, so I was expecting that to translate here, and now he's getting his opportunities, especially in his last game, and he absolutely exploded. Gave us 2-3 great field position setups, one time on the opponent's side of the 50-yard line. Then also at the same time in the receiving game, he did everything you could ask of him, and his stat line would look very darn similar to Tom Kennedy's with 4 receptions and a touchdown if Tim Boyle didn't miss that pass, his one really major miss of the day, where he threw it straight over Maurice Alexander's head. You take that away and you throw it on him and he catches that touchdown, which I know we can't really do, but if you did, his stat line would look very similar to what Tom Kennedy did as a receiver in this game. He caught all the passes he needed to. I love how fast he gets upfield, right? They hit him with an underneath drag and he gets upfield like that, immediately picks up like 8 yards. Then it was just like outside curl routes where it was just, hey, he is where he is, he catches the football, you know what you're going to get. Maurice Alexander, for the opportunities that he was given in this game, I thought he hit all of them. And Maurice Alexander now all of a sudden has himself in the discussion because if you have a guy that could be an elite kick returner, your final receiver, the reason Tom Kennedy has to be able to give you some special teams is fact because he's probably not going to play much offensively if he does make the roster. So he needs to find some sort of special teams impact so he does impact the team. And Maurice Alexander can be an elite or a really good punt returner, or really good kick returner. And if the Godwin didn't make the team because he was our kick returner, Khalifa's the punt returner, that's fine. Then that gives him a niche within the Lions. He's in a good spot. Now, we just jumped over Tim Boyle, so let me pull it back, give some Tim Boyle love. I believe he was 12 for 16 on the day. The one major miss that he had was the overthrow to Maurice Alexander. Yes, some of the ball placement was off at times, but I thought the same thing with David Blau. I thought his ball placement was actually a little bit more off than Tim Boyle, but I thought Tim Boyle handled himself pretty well in this game. Again, I thought he did well in pressure situations with pressure. Of course, he was sacked on one occasion. He scrambled and picked up a 9-yard first down, which was really nice. I thought Tim Boyle had a pretty darn good day. So based on what we've seen in the inconsistency, this was the first time I felt like there was some rhythm towards Tim Boyle's game. And a lot of it, of course, played through the run game, but both quarterbacks played through that because it ran the ball so well. And I think, again, for David Blau, he has a skill set where if we're not running well and the pressure's getting to him, he can escape and make a little bit more things happen. Tim Boyle, less of that. However, Tim Boyle with the run game looked really good today. This next one, I really had to rewatch to feel like I could put him here. And I know you could argue his sample size was too small to put him here, but we haven't seen him. This was his first game, as Dan Campbell told us. And I thought you saw the skill set that he had in college shown off for the most part. I thought you saw for the most part. First off, as a run blocker, all right, one of those big outside runs that we have, give a shout out to James Mitchell for leading the way, putting his guy on the ground, getting on the edge there. He is a nice run blocker, and if you go back to college, that was his skill set, his ability to block into the second level as a run blocker. Being able to bring that, of course, on screens as well. Then you also throw in the fact that what he can do once the ball's in his hands as a receiving tight end, he's a little bit dynamic. We didn't see as much of that in this game, but you did see the nice out route after catching an underneath pass. Tim Boyle, there really wasn't much going on that play, but I thought you saw the skill set that James Mitchell has, and now all of a sudden I feel pretty good because for a lot of these young guys, you see it in college and you're like, okay, this is what he can be, but I just haven't seen it yet, so I don't know how to feel about him. But even in this small sample size, I'm like, man, I feel good about James Mitchell. So I really want to see him again next week to see more, but I felt really good about what the skill set that he showcased in this game, that he could be your number 3 tight end. Now, with that being said, the guy that had a bigger sample size to pick from is Shane Zylstra. Shane Zylstra had 5 receptions for 34 yards, and I thought Shane Zylstra did a lot of good work too in this game. Big time drives, moving us down the field. He caught a really nice pass from Tim Boyle with pressure, about a 12-yard pickup on a 3rd and long. It was really nice right over the middle of the field, going down and scooping it and picking it up. And then also he was doing some things as a run blocker as well, or specifically the ones towards the goal line where you just see him kind of jolt his guy back. Shane Zylstra has now for 2 weeks in a row to me been showing up in terms of a run blocker, and in the pass game he was big time in this game. He's not much of a dynamic threat once the ball is in his hands, where I feel like James Mitchell can be, and what we saw from Funches he was. He's not really that, but sure hands is what we're seeing right now from Shane Zylstra, and he's making an impact on special teams to the point he actually had a tackle on special teams. It wasn't like one of the big stuffs that we had, but he did make a tackle on special teams, so he's showing value there too. Shane Zylstra, it's hard to just count the guy out. Now, of course, you would assume if it's even, they're going with the guy that they drafted. Even if it's not even, they'd probably go that direction. But Shane Zylstra played a good game today, or yesterday, and I have to give him credit and throw him into this section. Now, with running backs, I think for the most part, pretty much every running back did pretty well in this game because we blocked really well in this game. There was a lot of rushing attempts where guys weren't touched until they were multiple yards down the field. And in our first preseason game, that wasn't the case. No one really ran the ball well because we struggled to block. But again, I liked how we went to so much of the power scheme. Now, that could be good for some, not great for others. Logan Stenberg, I thought you really saw his impact. Tommy Kramer did well in this power scheme as a pulling offensive lineman. Shane Zylstra's, the pulling tight ends, the James Mitchells, right? These guys were good in these areas, and I thought you really felt that, and it really helped springboard some of these runs. But Justin Jackson is the guy that I have to bring up because he had 2 big runs. Now, Godwin had a big one. He went for about 16. Jamar had one that went for 9 on a pitch. So there was good runs from everybody. Craig Reynolds had some nice runs in there, even though I have pretty high expectations for Craig Reynolds, so I didn't think it lived up to that necessarily, but I didn't need it to. Craig's our number 3, so it doesn't even need to be mentioned. But Justin Jackson had a good day. The biggest thing was probably the mishandled, handoff that he had that turned into a fumble there that he ended up getting back on. That's probably the biggest knock for him, but he definitely showed off a lot of the juice that he has. He's an extremely explosive and agile athlete, which you did see. Great blocking, of course, springboarded those runs as they always do, but for this power rushing scheme that we kind of went to, it definitely showed off that he could do it. And then again, also shout out to the block that we got there on the edge. I believe that was the James Mitchell block that springboarded Justin Jackson the zone run to get the corner and just run up the sideline without even getting touched. So great blocking led the way, but I could not give credit here to Justin Jackson. But at the same time, I don't have anybody as a dud from the running back room. I all thought they did some good things in this game. I bring up Craig Reynolds, Jeremiah Jefferson, Godwin Igwebuike, who almost blocked a punt. All of those guys show up on special teams right now as well, so I'll give them credit for that. Godwin helping us in pass protection. Jamar continues to help us in pass protection. He also had another reception in this game. Didn't do much after the catch, but it was another reception. And that's, again, not a big part we've seen of his game in the past. So all these running backs are solid. We got a good running back group, and that continues to be shown off. Austin Bryant thought won a little bit less than I originally remembered when I went back and watched him in terms of pass rush. However, Austin Bryant did a lot of things well. And what's great is he built off a good, strong week of practice. Austin Bryant, first off, in the run game, when you run it towards him, he could absolutely handle like the power end position, right? Where it's like the heavy side. He can handle that. He embraces that. But then off the backside, I'm so impressed with just his effort level to fight himself into the play off the backside to get involved. I love that from Austin Bryant, making tackles behind the line of scrimmage. And then as a pass rusher, finally, some guys take a little bit more time than others. Sometimes that's just how it works out for him. A lot of it has to do because of his health. But Austin Bryant is really showing that he has some moves now as a pass rusher. And we got a sense of that last year. But first off, the pass that they threw out to the flat, Malcolm Rodriguez was in coverage there. Rodriguez actually ran into the receiver, kind of slowed him up. However, you saw a nice little spin counter move from Austin Bryant to get in the face of the passer. He had 2 sacks in this game as well, had a pretty high pass rush win rate in this game. I think what's huge for him is the get off. The get off is very important because he's not the most flexible type of pass rusher. He's a little bit more long limbed, a little bit taller in stature, a little more of a power pass rusher than kind of an agile pass rusher. So I think the get off is extremely important because it sets up a lot, and when he doesn't, things can stall out a little bit, but I love his effort. I like his run defense. I feel like really he's a really reliable run defender at this point. He's showing some change of speed as a pass rusher that kind of carried over from last year. Austin Bryant had a really good day as well. Eric Banks needs to be thrown into this, maybe to a little bit of a smaller degree just because of sample size again here, but Eric Banks had some wins as well as a pass rusher and run defensively. On one drive, of course, he had the technical sack, rollout, and then of course getting out there and making it a loss of 2, and then coming back with a tackle, which shot to Bruce Hector, because I didn't put Bruce Hector on this list, but Bruce Hector had some splash plays. It just wasn't enough to put him in the stud category for me, but Eric Banks did that as well. Chris Board, I gotta give Chris Board some love. I didn't notice this when I was initially watching it, but Chris Board, specifically in terms of coverage, man, the Lions would put him in just pass coverage situations. They just man him up on a tight end, and I believe he allowed 0 receptions on 3 targets, if I'm correct. It may not have been 3 targets, may have been just 3 reps, but you saw him in coverage. The one was not a pass breakup, but he was in tight coverage and it fell incomplete underneath to a tight end. But his coverage on a tight end is very notable. Isaiah Buggs once again showed that he is a really huge addition for the Lions. I mean, this is maybe the most underrated addition that the Lions have made this offseason. Seriously, Isaiah Buggs looks really good, and I'm so excited to see what he does this season. He's making the team at this point. I'm just gonna put, he's making the team. There is no speculation to me. He is making the team alongside Aleem McNeil on the interior. But his presence, like Demetrius Taylor specifically, because he only really worked with the first unit, or not the first unit, but the first unit in this game, his ability to get to the backfield, penetrate. I mean, he just sets up and opens up so many other lanes for everybody else. In the first game, he did the same thing. Isaiah Buggs, I think, is a great backup nose right now for the Lions. Juju Hughes, I'm going to give him some love. It wasn't all perfect for Juju Hughes. Like I said, there are certain matches where he's just kind of outmatched, and it's like, I don't know what he's supposed to do there. But Juju Hughes was all over the place. He showed up a little bit on special teams. He was all over the place defensively, making some big hits when he had the opportunity. He had a tackle for loss in this game. I thought Juju Hughes was kind of all over the place. He seems like a very smart safety. There are just limitations within his game. I'm curious to see where his role goes when CJ Moore comes back, because if CJ Moore goes above him, he probably won't make the team. But I thought he made some good plays in this game. I will throw John Kaminsky in here. Now, I actually almost put him in the up-down category because I got some pretty high expectations for Kaminsky at this point. All right, you've shown it to me, so now I have high expectations. And I liked him when we signed him. But with that being said, he still deserves to be this. Only reason I was taking him out is because there was a couple times where I'm like, oh yeah, he probably could have, contained the edge a little bit better on that play. But for what he is, while he doesn't always win as a pass rusher because he's a big defensive end, like to me, I thought his best attribute was his ability to win from the interior as a pass rusher. But right now, with what we have, that's the role he has to play. Near the end of the game, he plays defensive end for the Lions across from James Houston. So he's not really winning the edge at all with speed or any kind of like a dip around the edge. So he needs to play through the offensive tackle. And still, the pass rush win rate at which he has is very incredible. The ability to bull rush guys consistently, sometimes win on the inside. When they put him over a guard, he bowled him right back to the quarterback immediately. I still like him better there. But then as a run defender, while sometimes I feel like he may could contain that a little bit better, still, he came up with usual tackles and still limited plays to about 3 yards. And I'll also throw some love at Trinity Benson. As a kick returner, he took the one kneel down in the end zone. However, in terms of the receiving game for Trinity Benson, he caught all the passes that were thrown his way. He had a very big pickup on a third down there on a quick slant that was high, went up, grabbed it, pulled it down, picked up a first down. And then I also like Trinity Benson was getting active in the run game. Now, there was a clear miss that he had on one of our outside runs where he missed his guy on the Justin Jackson run where the pitch was kind of handled wrong and it was messed up to Jackson and they only picked up 3 yards. He missed a block there. But for the most part, he was getting involved in the run game. That's an area where Trinity Benson needed to improve because last year, some of these guys weren't blocking on the outside. Every receiver is blocking, whether that's Tom Kennedy, whether that's Trinity Benson. Everyone is blocking. Everyone is bought into in that sense. So when I say discipline, that's in another area. Everyone's blocking. Trinity Benson had a good day today. He is very explosive and dynamic once the ball's in his hands because he can just get upfield and pick up extra yards like Maurice Alexander. He had a nice drag that he took from many extra yards as soon as the ball hit his hands. In this game, he had 4 receptions for 44 yards. So he led the team in receiving yards in this game. And honorable mention was Sean Dan Hamilton. I didn't feel like there was enough to really put him in this list. But again, I thought he played well. He did what he was supposed to do towards the end. It just feels like he's kind of on the outs. But that's because I feel like the Lions have some good linebacker depth at this point for what they're asking of these guys. So those are my studs. Up, downs, I'm going to put Logan Stenberg. Had some good. I thought, again, when they went to the power run game, you start to see the mauling ability that he had, but there was also times where he would whiff and allow a guy past him. Pass protection, it's a little bit inconsistent at this point still. He had 2 pressures that he allowed in this game. Tommy Kramer, I'm going to throw here. I have higher expectations for Tommy, so I thought Tommy played better as a whole, but I still have higher expectations for Tommy Kramer. Again, I thought he did well in the polling scene for the Lions. The main reason I'm putting him here is because I thought he did pretty well at guard. The biggest reason I'm throwing him here is because at center, it didn't look very good. He allowed a pass rush. He got bulldozed back into the run where he ended up getting picked up for a holding call. So I thought more so when he moved to the center, which speaks good because the Lions feel like, hey, they can use him as a possible cross-trained center. It just didn't look very good when they did it. So I liked him at guard, even though that's an area where I feel like he can improve is like, hey, passing off, in pass protection, stunts, twists, things like that, being more reliable in those areas. At center, it was an issue, but he did a pretty good game from guard. I'll also throw Bruce Hector in here. As I said, I didn't think there was enough flash plays for me to put him in a stud category, but Bruce Hector can definitely get some penetration, can get some push. He doesn't win enough as a pass rusher right now, but as a run defender, which showed up last year, I think he definitely can do some things stylistically in his defense. I love the way that he's transitioned to fit and make it work in both defensive schemes. Then you also have Matt Nelson. He allowed 2 pressures in this game. Again, I have a little bit higher expectations for Nelson. I think he played at the beginning and at the end, which was weird. Was not bad as a run blocker, especially towards the second level, which is usually where he does pretty well. And I actually didn't think his pass protection was terrible. I thought it wasn't good. Like, I don't feel confident with it for like backup tackle, but I thought for the most part, our backup tackles all struggled in pass protection. And Matt Nelson was arguably the best. So to me, the 2 pressures he allowed wasn't great. Sometimes he just gives guys the edge a little bit too easily, but it was, I guess, on the better side in comparison to who he was with. So I'll put him in the up-down category. I thought it was a little bit better than last week. Evan Brown, I thought, kind of woke up a little bit in this game. He had a fantastic block on the 3rd and 1 that Jamar Jefferson picked up like 6 yards in the first down. And he had a fantastic block where he worked upfield and then a rusher came and then he sidestepped and he picked up both. It was outstanding to really clear that lane. But I'm going to put him into this category still with just some inconsistencies in terms of, run blocking and pass protection. But again, the expectations are very high for Evan Brown after resetting him. David Blau, I thought David Blau did some good, and I thought he, did some not great, but again, my expectations have now raised for David Blau. I thought he handled it well. He didn't come in and have issues starting. He did well. He led us down the field, played through the run game. I thought that was good, but he did have multiple passes that were behind his receivers that made it tough, and, some guys made some tough grabs, like Tom Kennedy, Khalil Pimpleton, had multiple, of those passes, had the interception, which he probably could have put down a little bit more, because actually a very similar overball that Tim Boyle threw later on. In this case, it was picked off. I think David Blau, again, he did a nice job utilizing his legs. He took maybe a sack in there that you wouldn't love for him to take, holding the ball a little too long, but I'll put him in the up-down category. I thought it was just a solid day for David Blau, and I thought he held steady, but I think the quarterback battle competition definitely got tighter because it was Blau ahead for sure for me, but now it's getting a little bit tighter. And then I'm going to put Austin Seibert. He made all of his kicks but one. It's still a little worrisome when he kicks it because it's not clean. But the 55-yarder looked good, and it just hit the right upright. With that being said, though, he still is our top kicker being utilized on kickoffs. So I think he's still kicker number 1 for the Lions. But maybe next week they'll switch it up like they have other position. They'll give Riley Patterson to go first. Clearly, that's not a lot of duds, as you can see there. But that's because I'm not including rookies. So we're going to take a look at that in a second with the rookie stock report. But I do have Dan Skipper on here. I really just don't trust his pass protection. He has some good roughs and run blocking, but he doesn't get a ton of movement. I just don't trust him in pass pro at this point. I really don't. Mark Gilbert, now I do agree. I think that he definitely got pushed off in the end zone. And I don't think he played terrible. It wasn't like he was getting burnt left and right and things like that. Like he was in contesting, passes, but he did give up multiple receptions in this game. He also had a missed tackle, I believe, in the flats. So, for Mark Gilbert, my expectations are a little bit higher for Gilbert, and I don't think it was good. So I would say if you're just talking stock up, stock down for a guy that's not a rookie, I think his stock definitely went down in this game, and he could be one of the next cuts. And then Kendall Lamb. Yeah, Kendall Lamb did some good. He did, and he played both left tackle and right tackle in this game. The issue is he did a lot of not good, too. 6 pressures he allowed in this game. It seems like one big issue is he just struggles to really protect the inside. If he sets for the outside, he struggles to protect the inside. Now, sometimes he does it okay. Sometimes he has good reps and he shows off some agility and athleticism there. And sometimes he just doesn't. And he gets blown by. There's too many of those blown blocks that he has. The tackles didn't do well for the most part in this game, but I definitely think it probably lowered his stock in this game because it seemed like they put some more on his plate and it wasn't great. Now with the rookie report, I would separate these guys. So the guys that of course didn't move, I didn't think there was any much change from what they did. And the guys that went up and down. Guys that went up, Demetrius Taylor, we already hit on him. Actually, I already put him in the actual list. I probably shouldn't have done that. I apologize. It is what it is, though. And I did the same thing with James Mitchell. Yeah, That may not look right when you see how many studs there are versus duds. I apologize. I shouldn't have put him in here, but we already talked about them. I like them both. And I'll put Derek Deese Jr. in here as well. So it's a different standard, of course, from being like a normal stud to being like a rookie stock report going up. But I thought Derek Deese stock did go up in this game because I love his, eagerness to block. His pass protection is not terrible either. I love his willingness to block, though. And then he did have the nice little play underneath where he picked up like 9 yards after the catch. But his run blocking is where he stands out to me. Derek Deese Jr.'s willingness to run, block, and lead the way is nice. I still feel like he could be, he's probably going to be on the outside looking in, but I do like what Derek Deese showed us in this game. I'm also going to say no movement to Chase Lucas or Malcolm. Chase Lucas, he played at the end. I don't know if that's like he should be down or up here. I just don't think there's anything I can say movement there. He's a smart cornerback, and you can see it. The way he communicates with others is great. He's a vet. He's a vet rookie, but I don't think he would have moved in terms of stock after this game. Neither with Malcolm Rodriguez. Malcolm just does his job. I love me some Malcolm Rodriguez. So it's not like he played bad or anything. Malcolm Rodriguez played good, but you got to remember he's playing with basically the starters, So Malcolm Rodriguez has to do some really good things to move his stock up, and I don't think he did that. I think Malcolm Rodriguez didn't have the flash plays again, but he has the plays where you're just like, man, he's a smart player. The pass into the flash, right? He picks that up well. He does things like that. He's a smart player. He knows where he's supposed to be. The run game, the way that he can fill his lane and then slide through and work out to a different one wherever the ball is, the way that he can play away from the football. I love me some Malcolm Rodriguez, but I'm not going to say his stock went up after this game. And for down, I'm going to throw Khalil Pimpleton in here. He had some good grabs. He actually did. I don't want to diminish some of the good grabs that he has. He's very quick and twitchy with the ball. We see that. He has some good grabs behind him. However, 3 receptions. You could argue he had 2 drops. The first one was kind of tough. I think even Gardner pointed out maybe there should have been a little change of pace there on the slot fade. And then at the same time, the other one, which I couldn't tell whether or not it was a drop on the drag, but it looked like a drop. I'm going to say that doesn't help your stock necessarily for making the team. I don't think he's had enough impact plays. But he wasn't bad. He just missed opportunities. And for these guys, they have to make opportunities, especially with a crowded receiver room like we have. Cedric Boswell, again, gave up another tough touchdown. It's not to say Cedric Boswell didn't have good reps in there. It's not to say he was getting burned all day because he wasn't. Cedric Boswell actually had a tackle for loss that was called back because there was a flag. But giving up another touchdown was tough. And again, in a crowded cornerback room, it's not easy. I think it lowered his stock a little bit. James Houston, I don't think I saw a single win on the edge as a pass rusher. And I really don't. I mean, there was a lot of times he was on the ground. He's not your prototypical edge rusher. He's 6 foot, 240 pounds. He was kind of an off-ball that transitioned to edge when he went to a smaller school and he just dominated everybody. And you can see the athleticism, but definitely had issues. I mean, there were no wins that I noted as a pass rusher. The run game, you're going to have some issues just because of size alone, even though what I do respect and I love about James Houston is you can see it, the guy battles. There was a chip that he got put on by a running back. He just absolutely got just lit up. But he got back and he fought. I mean, he battles every single play. There was a play that was completely away from him, and all of a sudden you see him come out of nowhere and get involved. You're like, who is that? That's James Houston. He battles. He absolutely does, but he's not winning on the edge right now, which stinks because there's some of those third downs we gave up. We just didn't get pressure, and you would like to see him do that where he was out there, but he's not getting that right now. Kirby Joseph. Now, Kirby Joseph, in a different light, I like Kirby Joseph. I like what he can do. I think he's a smart cornerback. I like his versatility. I love his open field tackling. But Kirby Joseph's stock, I think, did go down in this game. Some of the plays that he just allowed. On a deep in route on a third down that they picked up from off coverage. The bad angle that he took on Alec Pierce. Some of that's Alec Pierce big and he's tough to bring down, but I thought he took a bad angle, had a chance to get him off the field. Did not, right? Of course, the miscommunication that they had in the back end were allowed a huge play. I like some Kirby Joseph. He's a smart player. Communication issues don't mean you're not a smart player and you don't know where you're supposed to be. You just didn't communicate well with teammates, as Dan Campbell put it. However, on this, I think he showed how smart he was. His understanding of assignments to be like, okay, here's that guy, here's where I'm going to go. He cut off a tight end on one of the rollouts on Eric Banks' rollout. He cut off the tight end and took the route completely right. I really like the potential of Kirby. I still see it there, but he's raw. He's raw in communication. He's just raw from the safety position. He's only really played 1 full year of it in college. Like Derek Barnes, he's a little bit raw. He is. However, I like him a lot. Speaking of Derek Barnes, I guess I forgot him when we went through it. Derek Barnes was good in this game, and he made some plays in the backfield. He was filling his lanes well. He made a play on special teams before they even got to the 20-yard line. Derek Barnes was a stud in this game. I'm also going to put Eze in the no movement category. That's not to say that I think he played really well. I don't think he played terrible, but he just looks raw. I mean, he seems to have an issue sometimes giving up bull rushes, allowing some pocket push. He just looks raw in a lot of different facets at the tackle position, which is understandable, understanding his background. But with that being said, he just looked raw overall in this game. And I think for Obina Eze, it seemed like his role is a little bit smaller as well in this game. So I'm just going to say no movement. I don't think I missed anybody other than Derek Barnes, but I think Derek Barnes was a stud in this game. He was kind of all over the place in the run game, and at the same time, as a blitzer, you see the impact that he has there. I thought he did his assignments well, and at the same time, I liked how he made a play on special teams. So with that said, those are my studs, duds. Those are the rookie report, and those are my takeaways from this game. Lions are on 1-1 in the preseason. They play Sunday against the Steelers. I will not be live for that game, unfortunately, but we should be back for the regular season, and we will talk about that game. I just won't be live for it. Thank you, Brad, for watching. Let me know your thoughts, comments below, and I'm out.